Okay, hello everyone. We would like to welcome our guest speaker for today, Martin Salama. He is an IPAC certified coach. He's a master practitioner in Energy Leadership Index, an international best-selling author, and his motto or code is the Warrior's Life, L-I-F-E, all caps. And the code means live incredibly full every day. How awesome is that? He has over 10 years of experience as a life coach. He helps people frustrated in their life quickly shift their mindset to uncover their greatness so that their true potential comes out and they can enjoy life. So today we're going to talk a little about his program, Build Your Emotional Strength. But before we go into that, Martin, please tell us your personal journey, how you got started. Why are you a coach? What is that all about?
All right, cool. Well, first thing is, Beverly, Dr. Beverly, thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. We've gotten to know each other recently, and I'm very honored to be a part of your world. So thank you so much for that.
We're very pleased to have you here, Martin.
Thank you, thank you. So, I think it probably best to go back to my youth. And I had a tragic incident happen when I was a young boy. I was 10 years old, and I'm walking home from school with one of my four older sisters. And as we got closer to our house, we see a school bus stopped right in front of our house. And the bus driver standing in front of our house. We couldn't really see anything more than that. As we got closer, we heard some screaming, and my mother came running out of the house, holding my 5-year-old brother, Michael, in her arms, ran into the car, and drove away. My sister and I were looking at like, what is going on? And as we got closer, we saw that the bus driver was crying. We came to find out that my brother, as he was going in front of the bus, dropped something and went to pick it up, as a 5-year-old boy would do. The bus driver didn't see him, of course, because he was leaning, and drove and hit him. 4 days later, he died from his injuries.
Oh.
And this was, of course, the most tragic day in my life. And it's still today, still the most tragic thing that's ever happened to me. But at that same time, what happened is I told myself a story. I told myself that now that I'm the only boy and I have four older sisters, it's my job to make sure that my parents are happy.
Oh.
Right? Nobody told me this, but here I am, a 10-year-old boy. I'm the only boy. I have to continue with my family legacy of the name and build a whatever. So I don't know. Nobody's telling me anything differently. So I say, okay, this is what I have to do. And I become a people pleaser basically overnight. And it's really to make sure that I'm making my parents happy. Whatever they want me to do, I'm going to do. And as this goes on, as I get married, it perpetuates itself in my marriage. I'm trying to make my mother happy, my father happy, my wife happy, everybody in my family happy. And I'm splitting all these plates. I don't even realize that I'm not making anybody happy.
Not even yourself.
Not even, especially not myself. And here I've kind of coined this term, and I've copyrighted / trademarked it. I've rationalized that everything's okay, that I'm doing this all for the greater good. But here's what I coined. I took the word rationalize, and I realize now, looking back as I went through some of my changes, is rationalize is really two words. Rational lies. I was lying to myself that it was rational to do things that I knew was against my inner beliefs for the greater good.
Yeah.
Right? So I
Really
was
good. Yeah.
rationalized. And this continued. And what happened also as a result, and then my wife, I always felt like at the end of the day, I would say yes to her, even if it was against what I wanted to do.
Oh.
And now, fast forward to 2003, and I just closed a business. I was looking for something to do, and my wife says, I can't find any tennis to do around here. I said, okay, let's look into opening tennis courts. 5 years later, going through millions of dollars of preparation, we finally get all the approvals from the city. to build a 100,000 square foot health and tennis center. $15 million project. I have about $3 to $4 million of my money and other people's money invested in it. Go to the banks and they're like, yeah, things are not good right now. The world's about to fall apart. And
Oh,
in September 2008, the world fell apart. They said, we're not lending. I lost everything. I lost absolutely everything. I
wow.
was devastated.
Yeah.
And it was another defining moment. You know, when my brother died was a defining moment. This was another defining moment because now I have to say, what am I going to do now? You know, I have to figure out what's going to happen. It took me a while to get through that depression, which was obviously situational depression.
Hmm.
And that was a big aha moment for me to recognize that depression was because of this. I didn't need the medications. I needed for me to recognize it's all in my hands.
Yeah.
And after about a year or so, I decided I was going to become a life coach. And at the same exact time, on our 24th wedding anniversary, my wife told me, I'm done. I want a divorce.
Oh,
I'm like, gee, thanks for that wedding gift,
yeah.
anniversary gift. But and looking back now, I realized because of the people pleaser, what came along with it was I took everything personally. I
Oh,
was a control freak. I had a very short temper,
oh.
right? Because if I couldn't control what was going on, I couldn't please everybody, right?
Uh,
Such a temper, I would overreact to the point I was like a nuclear reactor.
wow.
I would leave fallout all over the place, and I would go around and apologize and make excuses that were nothing more than a way of deflecting my own blame
Just
from myself.
justifying your behavior.
Right, justifying it exactly. So at the time, I was like, please, I was so sad, so upset. And my main reason looking back now was because I thought that I would never find somebody to love me again.
Mm.
Right. So I wanted what I had because I was afraid of what I might not have.
Oh,
And going through life coaching school at the same time was the universe or God's way of telling me it's time to change. It's time for you to look
yeah.
within yourself and make some changes. And that's what's come out of going to life school, life coaching and divorce at the same time. I realized all those things I said. I was a control freak. I took things personally. And one day I was reading Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements. And the second agreement is don't take anything personally.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, what an idea. What a concept. And everybody's been telling this my whole life, but it never really dawned on me. But I had gone through some of the work of being willing to be self aware and willing to change. And it wasn't about change so that I can save my marriage, it was about change so that I can become a better me.
Hmm.
So now I'm looking back at my life. I'm 50 at the time. The last 40 years of my life, I've been thinking about my brother. I've been going through all these things, trying to please everybody, ending a marriage, having no money, right? Having nothing left. What am I going to do? So I decided that after going through life coaching school, that I was going to become a divorce recovery coach. And that's what I was at first. And I wrote a book, as you said, I'm an author on recovering from divorce to help people overcome the emotional pains. But what happened and I did well with that, okay, but I still wasn't liking myself. I thought I was, but I wasn't. And I looked in the mirror one day and I was the heaviest I ever was. And I realized I was making choices, eating emotionally, doing things as to hide what was really going on. And I changed everything. Overnight, I said, that's it. I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to eat better. And over 9, 10 months, I lost 65 pounds. But
Wow.
also what happened, thank you. What also happened is I started to realize that it's in my control how happy I am.
Hmm. Yes.
You know,
Completely. We can
that
only make ourselves happy. No one else can.
exactly right. And then I realized it all was like I was meditating one day, and I'm not a very good meditator, be honest with you, because I'm too busy thinking about all these other things. I can't focus on it. I had this download of I want to show people how they could live their best life. And after my meditation, I wrote for about 2 hours
Wow.
all of these things that were coming up in my mind of what to do. And out of that came the acronym LIFE, Live Incredibly Full Every Day.
It's a good acronym.
Thank you. Thank you. And I said, I want to show people how to do this. And so I put it on the side. I was still doing my other coaching. I was doing other jobs. And along comes COVID. And everybody is worrying all over the place.
Yes.
What's going to happen? How am I going to get through this?
Mm-hmm.
And I looked around and I wasn't worrying. I wasn't worrying. I was like, everything's going to be fine. And a Postscript is in a few years after I started this new thought process of life, right away after as I started dating some more, and I met somebody, and 2 years later we got married, and we're married for about 3.5 years now. And it's just a wonderful thing because she loves me for who I am, not looking for anything, and I love her exactly as she is, and we're not looking to change about anybody. So now it's 2020, and this happens with the COVID. And I realized everybody's worrying and I'm not. And I realized what happened to me for the last 10, 12 years prepared me for this.
Yes.
So I said, okay, I want to show people how to go from being a worrier to a warrior.
Oh,
And
that's where
the warrior comes in the warrior's life code.
Okay. Yes. And I do believe life does prepare us for what we need to do. And that in any healing profession, and coach, that includes coaching, you have to deal with your stuff first. Because if you haven't dealt with it, you can't help anyone else.
Exactly right.
I think every coach I talk to has a story like yours. This happened, and I looked within and went, "Oh my!" It's just true.
It's the same as others, just with different experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow, that's quite a story. Sorry about your brother. That must have been horrific for a young kid to see.
Yes.
Last time you saw him, he was in his mother's arms. That's terrible.
Yeah, it was terrible. And I got to see him one last time.
Oh, you did?
Unfortunately, he was, in a coma.
Oh.
But at least I was able to say goodbye the night before. And I don't know if I realized it at 10 years old that that's what I was doing.
No,
because this was the 70s. It wasn't a simple thing to just,
Yeah.
we've evolved a lot from that. But I did get to have that last vision of him. And it's interesting, over the years, people would, inadvertently call me Michael because my name is Martin, whether they knew my family or knew my brother or knew anything or not. It just happened to be, oh, you look like a Michael. And for years, I would shudder when somebody said it.
Oh.
And I'm like, and then about when I was going through this transformation, I realized that this was the universe or God telling me he's with me.
Ah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow. Such a story.
Thank you.
This has really impacted you greatly. It's enhanced your career, and you're no longer just focusing on divorce, which a lot of people go through multiple divorces even these days. And that's a lot. But I would like to congratulate you as a man for waking up to the fact that you needed to work on yourself.
You're right. Most men won't do it. They don't want to recognize it.
Women know this. They get divorced and think it was all their fault, and they start, researching and doing the work, and they say, oh, it wasn't all my fault, but I take responsibility, but the men don't. Yeah. So congratulations for really soul searching and going in and figuring that out.
Thank you. I've always been a very sensitive person. I think growing up in a family of women, 4 older sisters, I've always been that kind of sensitive. But I went through that same thing of feeling like the whole divorce was my fault.
Oh,
and finally, I got to a day and I realized we are both at fault and we are both victims.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I can't take blame for the things that were her fault. I can only take my responsibility for my actions.
Right.
And make amends and move forward and become somebody different as a result of it. And it's funny because my wife now hears stories and it's like, who was that guy?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you didn't want to know him. That was Martin 1.0. You got the 2.0 version.
Yeah, that was like my old me. I feel the same way. It's like, oh, was that me? That was a different lifetime. That was someone else.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you really enjoy working with people then and helping
Love it.
them. And so what kind of things do you see come up most frequently with the people you help?
So I think what comes up a lot is people struggling with their emotions,
Hmm.
with and not understanding that there's a difference between emotions and feelings,
Yes.
right? So I'm curious, what are you said yes. So how do you see a differentiation between emotion and feeling?
Well, the way I see it is metaphysically. There is only two feelings. There's love and there's fear. If you're in fear, you're not in love. If you're in love, you're not in fear. Everything else is an emotion. So when you learn, like you said, don't take things personal, come from a place of love, your emotions now you say, okay, I just felt this twinge. Where's that coming from? Why am I, jealousy or anger or whatever it is? You can put it in perspective and then deal with it. So
Right.
that's how I look at it, which is
Right.
a more
And
metaphysical way.
it's fantastic and it's a great foundation for what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Okay. For me, I look at emotions for the most part as that immediate thing that happens to you. All
Mm.
right. And I break it down and by the way, for people that well, as we go through this, I'll share with your audience a link so that they can get a chart and the things we'll talk about here so that it's not so abstract. And I break it down to different categories. There's happiness, caring, depression, inadequate, fear, confusion, hurt, anger, loneliness, and remorse. Okay, those are the different types of emotions. And then this is where my training comes in, and I talk to them. Imagine if you could understand your emotions better and what to do with them so
Mm-hmm.
that you can have emotional strength,
Mm-hmm.
as as is by the title of our talk here, build your emotional strength,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because especially from someone like myself who took everything personally, I allowed my emotions to control me
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
instead of me controlling my emotions,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have a thought, you have an emotion or a feeling, and then you have an action, right? So if you can have that thought, and before it gets to the emotional part, you start to understand what it's doing to you, for you, or against you,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have an action.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of a reaction, you have a response.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I came up with 4 steps for how to help people get through it. And I love wordplay, as you can see from my life, Live Incredibly Full every day. I took it and I used the same 4 letters to create this. And it's because people relate to words that they can remember,
Mm-hmm.
like acronyms. You hear doctors when they're going through medical school, they learn all these things about, right? You did, you probably did it
Yeah,
yourself,
I've been to medical school. Yeah.
right? And you learn all these acronyms to remind you all the different things. Like,
Yep.
how are you going to remember it all?
Yep.
So it's the same thing here.
Yep.
You're laughing because you know how true it is, right?
Yeah.
So, so it's the same thing here. So the first one is L. Listen to your inner voice and acknowledge your your feelings. So
Listen.
your inner voice is your emotions, right? Oh, I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling fear. I'm feeling happiness. Whatever it is, it's okay. People think life coaches' job is to tell people don't be angry. How often did I tell? It's not.
You
It's
can't
to
not
understand
have
what to
feelings.
do with the anger.
Right.
They're like, oh, you're going to teach me to be happy all the time? Well, that would be great. But that's not what it's about. It's about how to control that emotion and have it work for you. So they have that emotion. That's L. Next is identify your feelings. So there's each emotion has a gamut of feelings that go with it, right? So I have on this chart 3 sections: strong, medium, and light. So, for example, for anger, you have belligerent, affronted, heated, incensed, infuriated, in strong. In medium, you have aggravated, crabby, cranky, exasperated, and it goes in alphabetical order. And then in light, you have chagrined, dismayed, impatient, irked. So you see this difference. So now I tell the client, what kind of anger are you feeling?
Mhm.
Identify the type of anger. Are you ticked off, or are you ready to storm out of the room? Which one? Which feeling? Because now you're making them think, and say it's a good thing to think. So then that's I identify your feelings. What
Mhm.
kind of feelings are you having?
Mhm.
Then why are you feeling this? Find out why. F. Find out why. Question your feelings to the point that you even get to like you're cross-examining like you're a lawyer. Go deep. Why are you feeling this? What is happening? Write it down and say, this happened to me, and I'm feeling this, and I'm feeling that. And as a result, is it hurting you or is it helping you? All right. And then you get to the last one, E. Excuse me. Engage in change and take action.
Mm.
What kind of action? Well, you write it down. Write something down that means something and that you're going to do to change. If it's hurting you, if it's helping you, great. How is it helping you? And how can you use it? In happiness, in some of the what I don't like to use the word positive anabolic type of feeling, which are things that are constructive,
Mhm.
and catabolic are things that are destructive.
Mhm.
So in the anabolic, how are they helping you? And in the catabolic, how are they hurting you?
Mhm.
And then you can take those four things and say, what am I going to do right now to change? If it's something that needs to be changing. If it's a happy, what am I going to do to change so that I keep on being happy? It goes both ways. What am I going to do if I'm angry? And I found myself, this came out of my own personal work, as we talked earlier. So I got divorced, and 2 or 3 years later, my son was getting married. And something happened right before the wedding. And my son came to me and told me the story. And he was apologizing to me. He says, it's not you. It's something my wife did, my ex-wife. The old me would have picked up the phone right there 2 days before the wedding and said, you this, and ripped
Oh,
her
wow.
a new one. I
Wow.
would have. That's the old me. What would I have accomplished? I would have made the wedding bad for her, for me, for my son, for everybody else that was around. I would have exploded like a nuclear reactor and left fallout for 2 days before the wedding. You could imagine the angst that would have been at that wedding.
Yeah.
I didn't. I waited until a few days after the wedding. I called her up in a controlled anger and said, you did this. You sent a message to our children that I mean nothing. This, blah, 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 blah. And I listed the things that were bothering me. And this was a defining moment for me. I ended the conversation by saying, thank you for divorcing me.
She did you a favor because look at who you become now.
Exactly.
You
But
know?
until that moment, there was always that glimmer of hope that maybe she'll take me back.
Oh no, you don't want to go back because
No, no.
back
But,
in those old
that's the
paradox.
insecurities in me. Right. But at that moment, when I told her, thank you for divorcing me, I closed the door.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes we do need to close the door on old relationships because they trigger
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, unfortunately, when you're married, when you have children, as much as you want to close the door,
can't. Yeah.
there's still a screen there. Things come through.
Yeah.
So I took my own things. I listened to my feelings, listened to my voice, and acknowledged my feelings. I identified what I was feeling. I understood why, and then I engaged in change. And I wrote it down. I'm going to do this after the wedding,
Very good.
and I did it. And
Before the
not
wedding,
only did I not have any fallout, I it was a I ended up having a positive effect on myself as a result.
well, that and if you had created that negative energy, they would have remembered that every time there was an anniversary. It would have gone on forever, that negative energy.
Right, right,
So,
right.
because of the way you handled it, that
Exactly. And my children know nothing about it unless they listen to my podcast. They know nothing about it.
well, if your kids are like mine, they don't listen to your podcast.
Exactly.
Somehow our
Oh,
kids,
Dad, don't coach me now. All right, Dad, don't coach me. I don't want to hear that.
yeah, our families are the last ones to listen to us.
Right. So
Uh,
yeah, so that's how I do it. And like I said earlier, I would love to offer to your audience
mhm,
some worksheets. And what I can do is I do a deeper dive of this on a webinar,
mhm.
okay, where I go a little deeper into each one of these steps because we're just on a podcast here that I don't want to waste everybody's time. They can, and I'll send you give a link as a free gift to your audience where they can click on watch my webinar, and before that they can even download the sheets, which is that vocabulary of emotions and feelings, as I was talking about, as well as each one of the steps laid out where they can write in what are they feeling, identify your feel, each step, listen, identify, find out why, and engage in change and do it, and write down on the last one, what am I going to do to change? And then also underneath it, if they feel like they want to talk to me more about something, they can have a breakthrough strategy session, free 30 minutes to go forward with that as well.
That's really generous of you. And just to add to that, I think it's really important that people handwrite all of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a connection. I'm a handwriting analyst, and there's a connection between the brain and how we write. And when you write, it has a very different impact on your whole body and your emotions and spiritually than when you just type it in the computer.
I agree.
That's really, really awesome. We thank you for that gift, and that'll be evergreen because this will be out on YouTube. And for everyone that's listening, the link will be posted down below that you can go and get that link. And Martin, you're a great coach. What a wonderful story. We really thank you so much for sharing it with us.
It was my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And Dr. Beverly, it's been a pleasure spending time with you and getting to know you as well on here, off here. And I look forward to us having great conversations in the future as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Martin.